Good morning, everyone. In our faith tradition, the annual meeting of the congregation is a sacred event. In our tradition, the congregation has authority over all matters pertaining to the congregation. The annual meeting is one way that we engage and embody our fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. At a time like this, when the state of democracy in the United States feels fragile, our Unitarian Universalist congregations are places where we intentionally work to keep the spirit of democracy alive. As we begin this sacred work, I offer these words by Heather Janules. From the power of our memory and history, with high hopes for the days that lie ahead, we gather to craft the destiny we share with one another. We gather with faith in the practice of our democracy. We gather with hearts and minds open to the wisdom in every voice among us. In our gathering, may we dream and design a bold future. May we bring our best selves to this service, and may we dream these dreams and do this work with love. May it be so. Amen.
Mike Bold will light the chalice.
Our opening words, our chalice lighting words, come from the Oberlin UU Fellowship in Oberlin, Ohio. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and be kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together.
Thanks, Mike. The first thing we need to do is review the rules for online voting. Scott, you want to take this one away?
Yeah, we're going to do a practice vote, so you can see how to do it. And I think Bill's going to launch that. And there on your screen, you will see, do you believe in ghosts? You have to answer all 3 questions, and you can try it here. But if there's no second member in your house, make sure you click no second member. And then same on the third. You'll have to do all that before you could submit your vote. So there has to be an answer in all 3 questions. And all the votes will be this way. So it's very simple. And we do have people monitoring the chat. So if anybody has problems or something doesn't work right, feel free to put stuff in the chat and you'll get an answer. I hope everybody got a chance to see how that works. That one doesn't count, so it doesn't matter what you put on there.
I'm going to leave a few moments to let any problems get taken care of while we go ahead and certify that we have a quorum. We need to have at least 70 members present, voting members, active members, to have a legitimate votes at this meeting. So we need to certify the quorum, and there it is on the. And remember to fill in the chat if someone's having problems, so that someone can contact you and help you. How we doing, Scott? We got a quorum?
I count 80 members.
Excellent. Good, we're set then. We have a quorum then. So the next step in the meeting is to approve the minutes of the mid-year meeting. Those were posted on the website. Anyone have any additions to make to the minutes from the mid-year meeting? So let's go ahead and vote on approval of the minutes. I feel like we need the Jeopardy little song, the da 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 dum bum ba dum bum bum bum.
Mike,
So the minutes,
are you
minutes
guys
are-
able to see all these totals okay, Mike and Hal?
Yes,
Okay,
we have 91 to 1 at this point.
excellent.
Did you see the comment in the chat where Lisa Dortle said it was not an annual meeting?
Yeah. I saw where there's a comment in the chat about it. It was the minutes from the mid-year meeting were labeled as annual meeting. That needs to be changed. Thanks, Melinda. So after a year of serving as your president, this is my last meeting to officiate. And to quote from the Grateful Dead, what a long, strange trip it has been. Who knew that Zoom would be such an important part of our lives? It has allowed contact between us, even as we remained isolated and safe. We held online worship services with music, online meetings, online social hours, online covenant groups, small group ministry, a book club, an auction, the Urban Craft Fair. Many members have stepped up and gone beyond the call of duty to keep this community up and running. And I would like to thank each and every one of you. However, what has stood out for me this year and what has made all this possible is our wonderful church staff. I could not have done my job as president without them. We could not have had a weekly online service without them. We would have fallen apart as a community without our hardworking, creative, flexible staff. To quote from the musical Rent, they provided connection in an isolating age. They have worked long hours in isolation while developing and executing tasks that were way, way outside their job descriptions. So let us take a moment to thank them. Transitional Lead Minister, the Reverend Diane Doggart. Who knew that she would be able to make us trust and embrace a minister who most of us, including me, have never met face to face? Assistant Minister of Congregational Engagement, Reverend Denise Gouch. She has taken on new responsibilities and has further endeared herself to us. Director of Music Ministries, Jay Tiefenbaum. No live singing, yet the music soared. Who knew she could edit music videos? Pianist, Holling Smith-Bourne. Moving performances without a live audience. That's the definition of a true professional. Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Marguerite Mills. She learned and taught us new ways to connect to our religious education. Director of Communications, Sherry DiGiovanna. What a skill set Sherry has acquired, working way beyond her job description. Administrator, Mary Lindsay, always available to me at least, even at late hours. She kept us all connected with Zoom meetings. Child care coordinator, Kendra Anderson, functioning totally outside her job description as a Zoom facilitator. Maddie Lindsay successfully made the transition from child care provider to Zoom service provider. Custodian, Tony Flemisher. I'm told we're returning to a clean, sanitized, and safe buildings thanks to Tony. Finally, and thanks to the staff who have seen us through this long, strange trip and provided connection in this isolating age. So please, everyone, raise your hands up and wave a deep thank you to all your staff members who have provided that connection in this isolating age. Next, I'd like to introduce the board members. I'm your outgoing president. They're all pictured there in front of you. Hal is the ex-president. I'll be on the board for another year as an advisor. Mike will be your new president. I'd like to thank all of you for the service you've given us. It's been a pleasure to work with you all. Normally I'd have you all stand up, but obviously in a Zoom meeting that doesn't work. Recognition of retiring leaders, Reverend Diane Doggart.
So I'm going to requote Doug's quote as, yes, what a long, strange trip it's been. And over the past year, I've come to know the elected leaders of your congregation almost entirely in virtual space, meeting on Zoom and communicating by email. In this very challenging year, I have come to trust their wisdom, dedication, and commitment. Through their steady and steadfast leadership, the congregation continued to be present and provide services for members and friends, and for all who are seeking religious community with us. And in addition to that, they have worked diligently to serve the congregation's mission of creating community, nurturing spiritual growth, and acting on our values. It is with deep gratitude that I recognize the following leaders who are retiring from their service on the board and elected communities. Allison Thompson as Resource and Development Council Chair, Brenna Hansen as Program Council Chair, and thankfully she has agreed to move to being Board Secretary. Chelsea Henry as Ministerial Chair, Chris Martin, Kathy Sowell, and Holly Miller from the Safe Congregation Panel, Hal Potts as Immediate Past President, Kathy Hiller and Carol Koppel as nominating co-chairs, and a name I'm going to mispronounce, Linda D'Erico from the Trust, Linda Fish as Board Secretary, and Phyllis Salter as at-large board member. And I know that you all join me in deep gratitude for their diligent, dedicated service. Thank you, outgoing leaders. Doug, you're muted.
Now for the nominating committee report from Carol Koppel and Kathy Hiller.
This is Carol. Before we present this year's slate of nominees, I'd like to introduce the other members of the nominating committee. Kathy Hiller and I have been co-chairs. On our team were Kathy Gansky, Scott Pearson, and Julie Noland. And with us for most of the year was Kim Hackett. She had to step back toward the end because of the demands of her nursing job. Like the staff members, board, Diane, every committee and team in the church, we had to meet the special challenges of doing our work in the pandemic year. Our meetings, of course, were all on Zoom. And while we normally get to talk face to face with prospective nominees, maybe over a cup of coffee or lunch, we had to rely almost entirely on the telephone. While it's not the same, we had many good conversations and enjoyed getting better acquainted with a lot of great people. We appreciate everyone who talked with us and gave thought to serving. And we are delighted with the excellent group of nominees. Kathy Hiller will now present the slate.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Kathy Hiller. I've served with Carol Koppel this year as nominating co-chair. I'm proud to announce the following slate of candidates who have agreed to serve in positions on elected committees on the board. Endowment Trust, Pat Lynch and Vicki Tatarian for a second term. Safe Congregation, Bill Latimer, Alex Brooks, and Nancy Ledbetter. Nominating Melinda Fish, Debrina Dills, and Scott Giles. On the board for Vice President-elect is Susan Johnston. Secretary is Brenna Hansen. Resource and Development Chair, Vanessa Hall. At-large delegate, Ginger Brown, and Scott Weaver is an at-large delegate, also for a second term, and at-large delegate, Sharon Ruiz, for a second term.
So everyone should go ahead and vote. And I'd like to thank the nominating committee. What a fabulous list of nominees to present to the congregation.
I couldn't resist.
Fabulous. Once again, I'm in awe of your talents, Sherry. Although I was looking at the picture of Scott with his guitar and thinking maybe that next time we have a Zoom meeting like this, we should hire a guitarist.
Amen.
I get 105 in favor and none opposed.
Congratulations. Reverend Diane Doggett will go ahead with the installation of the elected officers and members. Sure.
Want to add my thanks to Doug's for the incredibly hard work of the nominating committee this year. I've worked with a great many nominating committees over the years, and I have to tell you that working especially with Carol and Kathy has been just a joy and a pleasure to see their diligent work and their "we can do this" attitude. And they have presented you with a very fine slate of officers for the coming year. In a free religious community, one that holds love and service and democratic values as central to the expression of faith, to be called forth as an elected leader is a sacred trust. Today, your nominating committee has placed before you officers who have answered the call to serve with an affirmative yes. Though they fill their roles differently, and they have different roles, their commitment is the same: to serve the mission of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville with integrity and honor. As a covenantal faith, this commitment is made in relationship with all who make this congregation their spiritual home. In mutual discernment with the nominating committee, those just named have agreed to serve in elected leadership roles. By your vote, you as a congregation are granting them your trust, and with that trust, the authority to carry out the duties of the roles they have agreed to fill. Even as they move forward to fill leadership roles, still they are your peers who hope and dream and strive and fail and achieve just as you do. They have lives that both fulfill and challenge them just as you do. As a congregation, you are called to support these leaders who have responded to the call of leadership with your own affirmative yes. So to the members of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville, I ask, will you grant those whom you have elected the trust and the authority to carry out the duties with which they have been charged? Will you communicate your concerns directly to them as they fulfill their duties? Will you hold them in steadfast love and care as they strive to live out the best of who we are as a community of faith? If so, would you please indicate your affirmative yes in the chat or with an affirmative emoji in the reaction area, or just with a thumbs up of affirmation. And while we see those affirmations rolling by, to the newly elected leaders of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville, I ask, will you take up the charge to serve the mission of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville Will you hold the mission as your guiding star as you carry out your duties? Will you serve with an open heart, honoring the trust that has been granted to you? And if this is possible, and I don't know, Scott, if this is possible, if they could unmute and respond by saying yes, and if not, we'll just do it in the chat.
They can.
They can. So elected leaders, if you accept this charge, would you unmute and respond with a cacophony of yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a free religious community, the spirit of covenant is central to who we are. The promises that we make to each other are the fiber of commitment that hold us together. By the authority of the free religious community, your elected officers are now duly installed. Let us rejoice. Hallelujah and amen.
Thanks, Reverend Diane. Next is a stewardship report by Richard Byrd.
Thanks, Doug. Good morning, everybody. It's a little over a year ago, as we were discussing this year's stewardship campaign, that we were planning for a full in-person canvass of all members and friends. And we expected to talk to folks not just about their commitment for the coming year, but also for their commitment to a multi-year capital campaign that would lay the financial footing for a new building. Then the world changed. We quickly knew the time would not be right for a capital campaign. And as we approached the annual stewardship campaign, we had to completely rethink how we would engage the congregation. How, in a time when we are not meeting in person for Sunday services, Wednesday dinners, or annual fundraising or fellowship events, could we promote stewardship and the importance of making a financial commitment to the church? Well, I was very fortunate to have a great team who pulled together the first, and I hope the last, completely virtual stewardship campaign. There was Bob Day, our treasurer, Andy Toller, Eva Surface, Pat Lynch, Daryl Meyer, Charlie Omquist, June Dye, Liz Schneider, and of course Trigg, who along with Jeff Stein put together the very clever and very fun Zoom stewardship kickoff event. The board has set a goal of $650,000 for this year's campaign. This goal would allow for a small raise for our staff and would include expenses for certain items that were covered this current fiscal year by a PPP loan and by a small grant from our trust. The pledges received during the campaign have totaled just over $580,000. A combination of financial hardship for some and disengagement from the church during the lost year of 2020 for others is the primary contributor to this shortfall. Last year, we received commitments from 246 pledging units. This year, we've heard from 216. Of those, there were about a dozen who made pledges in prior years who said they would not be able to make a pledge this year, just yet anyway. And that's okay. We appreciate hearing from them. We value them, and we hope they'll be in a better position soon. Another 10 needed to decrease their pledge, and about 80 kept their pledge the same. We did ask those who were able to consider stepping up and increasing their commitment to help offset these expected challenges. I was overwhelmed when 112 pledges, more than half of those received, were increases. These pledges represented an average increase of 11%. And while not as many as in a normal year, we did welcome 6 new pledges this year. If you haven't made a pledge yet or are able to increase your pledge, it's not too late. You can still go to firstunash.org/stewardship to make or update a financial commitment. And I want to thank all of you who have made a pledge for the coming year. Our church could not exist without you. I also want to thank those who are virtual visiting stewards this year. And again, I want to thank the hardworking members of the Stewardship Committee. I believe it was Siddhartha who said, "Giving brings happiness at every stage of its expression." We experience joy in forming the intention to be generous. We experience joy in the actual act of giving something. And we experience joy in remembering that we have given. Thank you all very much for all that you've done. We truly do appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard, and thanks so much for the hard work by the Stewardship Committee. Bob Day is going to present the Treasurer's Report and the budget for approval.
Good morning, and thank you again to all of you who have not only pledged but paid your pledges this year. It's been remarkable how consistent the contributions have been. We really appreciate it. And I want to take a few minutes just to review my treasurer's report on the current year. Our expenses have exceeded our income by a bit, but we've made it through with the use of our operating reserves, the grant from the trust that was for our financial coordinator, and of course the cash infusion of the PPP loan that Steve Jones arranged for last year. That loan has now been forgiven, so it is showing up on our income sheet as income. It's phantom income because we've spent it, but it's there from an accounting perspective. That's good news. And it was very helpful to us in both the last fiscal year and the current fiscal year. We are not eligible for a second PPP loan because we didn't have a decline in income greater than 25% in any calendar quarter, year over year. So that's good. Also, our comrade Steve Jones has agreed to chair the Finance Committee for the coming fiscal year. That's not an elected position, but I wanted to acknowledge his volunteering for that. I do have a little year-over-year comparison, which I will show on the screen here. This shows the current year through May, and we also have the prior year, complete year. So our regular offerings are at 544,000 compared to a budget year to date of 558,000. That's just a tad shy. That's really remarkable. Of course, the loose offerings on Sunday are way down, but that's to be expected because we're not meeting on Sundays. And then our other income is also down a little bit, but it's pretty good. Overall, we're at 97% of our expected income year to date. As Richard mentioned, our stewardship campaign came up a little short of the goal. And I'm going to now put up the budget that we're proposing. The Finance Committee worked on this budget, and the board has approved it to recommend to the congregation. You can see that 578,000 is the number that's in the budget. That has changed a little bit since this was completed, but not much. I'm going to scroll through the expenses, and we can see the total operating expense projected is $710,982. That leaves us with a deficit of $90,802. I'd like to say that in terms of a budget, just because something's in the budget or not in the budget doesn't mean we're going to spend it or not spend it. I like to think of the budget as sort of like Google Maps. You know where you want to go, and it points out if there's warnings along the way of heavy traffic or no traffic or accidents. And after after the board approved the budget, we had some community conversations to discuss whether we really wanted to do a deficit budget with that big a deficit. And we decided that there were so many unknowns that we just really needed to proceed with the budget and rely on the board and the finance committee to guide us through it on making decisions of what to do or what not to do as we go through the year and see how things come together. In addition, an idea that came up during the community conversations was to have a special fundraiser in the fall, once we're back together again, to raise money to try to cover the deficit. The goal of that special fundraiser is, for the congregation, is $50,000. And the endowment trust has graciously agreed to match dollar for dollar anything that is raised by the congregation. So if the congregation can raise $50,000, we will have $100,000, which will more than cover the deficit. With that in mind, I feel a lot better about proceeding with the deficit budget, because even if we don't come up with the whole $50,000, let's say we get $25,000, that the trust would still match that, and we would have $50,000 towards our deficit. And that's a much more manageable figure. The budget itself is basically the same as it was last year. The only difference is a very modest 1.2% cost of living increase in staff salaries. Let's take a minute and see if there's any questions in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing. Yes, Lori, ask a question.
Thank you. I will say thank you very much. And in case you didn't see Peg's comment about you and Steve being finance superheroes, I just want to make sure everybody has seen that, because it's true. Okay, so I went to the budget conversation and I looked at the budget yesterday, and this morning all of a sudden I'm confused. Would you say again, what is the 578,000 amount and what is the 710,000? What are those two numbers? What do they mean?
The 578,000 is the amount of pledges that have been made for the coming year. And that is not total income. That's just the pledges that have been made from individual members. There's other income from things like the auction and service and maintenance fees and the herb fair. So the total income is more than 578,000. The total income projected is 620,000.
Oh, okay. That's why I got confused. I was trying to subtract the 578 from the 710 and it was more than 90.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, I got it.
Anything else? All right, then on behalf of the Finance Committee and the board, I move the adoption of the budget. My recollection is that with the committee making the motion, there's no need for a second, but I could be wrong.
Vote is on the screen.
Are we voting on the
Are we voting on the budget?
Yes.
Or
Yes. Approval.
so if we have questions or comments, when does that happen? It just happened.
I thought we just did that, but okay. You got another question?
Yes, I mean, in general, I'm not in favor of deficit budgets. And I worry about what will happen if we're not able to, if people are not able to come up with the amount of money we need in the fall, or if they pledge then and then find that they're not able to
complete that gift. Then we're talking about having to cut staff hours and things like that that we've had to do in our long ago in our past, and it was not a pleasant thing for anyone involved.
Right.
I'm just uncomfortable with a budget that is unbalanced by this much.
As we all are. There's so many unknowns that the sense of the finance committee and the board was that we just need to have a budget that can show us where we can cut or where we can add. For instance, right now, we don't have a religious education coordinator. When Jonah resigned, we did not replace him. To date, he has not been replaced. If we're not able to raise enough money to cover that expense, it won't be replaced. There are things like that where we just don't know what the answer is right now. If we were to cut the budget to make it balance, then we wouldn't have the flexibility to hire someone. Like if we cut out that position, and then down the road we find we do have the money, we'd have to go through the whole budget process again to add that position, as an example. So that's why we decided to recommend the deficit budget and have faith in the future. Love conquers all. Keep those love letters coming. We're just going to have to do it month by month till we figure out where we are. We'll have a much better sense of it after we do have the fundraising event. And if it doesn't come through, then we'll have more decisions to make then. We have not hired a replacement for the financial coordinator, which was a big deal. Again, because we didn't have enough money, to guarantee that we could pay that person. I don't like it either, Lisa, but it's what we got to do. Stepping out in faith.
And the vote is on the screen. I don't know if everybody's had time to vote, but
I don't see the vote on the screen, Scott.
I'm not sure why you wouldn't, but it's up there. Is everybody else seeing it okay?
No, I'm not seeing it.
I assumed I'm not seeing it because I already voted when it first popped up.
She said
Oh,
what I needed.
right, yeah, if you already voted and you closed it, then it will go away.
We've had 84% cast a vote so far, so it is visible to people.
Not the results.
No, the results aren't showing up yet.
Not yet.
Click on polls if you can't see it.
I don't see that option across the bottom.
Participant, well, where did it go? Oh, it's only up if it's available.
Answered all three questions, and then the submit button should be active.
Yeah, there is a polls on the bottom that you should be able to click on and see it.
On my computer, it's called reactions. I just figured that out.
Current numbers are 90 2 for, and 2 against.
Okay, so
You muted?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So
You'll
that
be hearing
passes.
from us.
I imagine so. Thank you much to everyone on the Finance Committee for their hard work on that budget and for the extra community meetings that went into creating that. Now to the Endowment Trust Report, Lori Samuels.
Hi, everyone. Good to see all of you. I'm Lori Samuels. I'm here with a report on the Endowment Trust. And this year, I thought I would begin by explaining what exactly the Endowment Trust is for anyone who has joined the congregation recently or just anyone who has never been quite sure what it is. So to begin with, an endowment fund is a special kind of investment fund. What makes endowment funds special is that in general, any original donations remain untouched, and only some portion of the investment income is taken out every year. The idea is to keep the fund growing while using only some of the additional money as the fund grows. It's not like a piggy bank or a rainy day fund. It's not meant to ever be emptied out completely. Some endowment funds, like ours, are set up using a legal structure called a trust. Our endowment fund, or endowment trust fund, which everyone usually just calls the trust, was established in 1984, and as a trust, it's a completely separate legal entity from the rest of the congregation. The trust has its own bylaws, separate from the church bylaws, and the congregation elects 5 people to serve as trustees in overlapping terms. As you saw earlier, 2 of those terms will end at the end of this month, and new terms start over. Because we're a separate legal entity, we're not part of any of the church's councils, although we do communicate regularly with the church treasurer. I hope that was a helpful overview. Now that I've said a little bit about what the trust is, I'd like to introduce the other 4 trustees. You see their names up there, and maybe you all can wave if your cameras are on and anybody happens to be watching in gallery view. Linda DeRico, who, as you heard earlier, is completing her term. Josh Johnson, Vicky Tatarin, who is completing 1 term and starting another, and Candy Toller. They have been a wise and dedicated group, and I feel very lucky to be learning from them. We're all going to miss working with Linda, and at the same time, we're very happy that Pat Lynch will be starting her term in July. In January of this year, in accordance with our distribution policy, the trustees transferred a little over $12,000 to the congregation's capital reserve fund. If this had been an ordinary year, we would have then started the grant application process, and at today's meeting, I would be announcing this year's grant recipients. But this was not an ordinary year. Instead of offering grants this year, we decided to hold the $18,000 that we could have awarded, and we'll put that towards the fall matching campaign that Bob mentioned. As of yesterday, the value of the endowment had grown to just over $760,000. We have 2 groups of people to thank for this. The first group is people who left money to the congregation when they passed on. I'd like to take a moment to think about them with gratitude. Please join me if you want. All those people are part of the congregation's legacy circle. And if you have included the church in your will or named us as a beneficiary of a life insurance policy or other investment, or asked that people make memorial donations to the church in your memory, you are part of the legacy circle as well. The full list of legacy circle members is on the church website, and we're grateful to all of you. The second group of people we're grateful for is people who have made gifts to the trust in honor or in memory of someone. During this past church year, we received approximately $4,500 in contributions from 24 different people in memory of people who died this year or long ago, in honor of living church members of all ages, and for other reasons as well. If you made a contribution in this past church year, but we haven't thanked you, please let me know. It's been an honor to serve as chair of the trustees this year. Any of us would be glad to talk with any of you further about anything related to the trust. To reach us, it's trust@thefuun.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate that. We're going to go ahead to the next item, which is Mike Bowles talking about the building for our future update.
The building for our future task force was formed to explore the process for building a new church facility. This happened several years ago. We were able to go through the process of selecting an architect to work with us on this project. The list was pared down to 3 firms. About the time we reached that point in the process, the pandemic and economic recession came crashing down on us. It was felt by the board that the timing was not right for proceeding with a capital campaign. Accordingly, that process is on hold for now, but not forgotten. The board will continue to monitor the process of healing from the last 2 years. As soon as the time seems appropriate, we will resume the process of working with an architect and launching a capital campaign. As Bob said, you'll be hearing from us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike, and thank for all the hard work that committee's done. Next, we're going to hear from the reopening task force, and Scott, you're front and center.
Okay. The reopening task force has been an interesting task force to be a part of. We've heard a lot of feedback from people who want the church to reopen now and fast, and other people who would, are still not comfortable. And we did have a couple medical people, and actually Doug has helped us a lot, even though he's not on the task force, just for advice sometimes. But we were trying to look at a plan that would be safe, or as safe as we felt it could be. And we came up with a plan, then we had to change it because things got better quicker than we thought. And so we do have now a complete plan that's on there, and that could possibly change even again, depending on what happens. The board would decide if things needed to change from there. But our task force is made up of Reverend Diane Dalgert and Mary Lindsay, who are both staff members, and then Jacob Hathaway and Barbara Snook and myself. And it was fun. We had just a lot of challenges trying to think about what to do, but Jacob especially did a lot of research that helped us, on the medical end. And so that's, I think, all we have really. We're excited about opening up.
And Scott, you want to remind everyone when the first service is?
Actually, I don't remember the date, but Diane could probably chime in. I know it's one of the August dates, and there is social
29.
hours. The social hours will actually be starting in person next Sunday. So all that's on the church website. If you're interested, you can at least get in there and see people.
Yes, and August 29th will be the first in-person service, and it will be a celebration of water communion.
It's an in-person social hour starts next week. And as Scott said, the details are all on the website. Next up is a transition team report, and Jessica Himmelreich.
Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it. So just a quick overview on the transitions team. This team began meeting in February of 2021. The transitions team is commissioned during the February 21st service online via Zoom. This is the second reiteration of this team. Each team serves for 1 year. The team's purpose is to meet monthly with Reverend Diane to evaluate and help with the progress of each of the development goals. Just a quick reminder on what those development goals for Reverend Diane's tenure with our congregation is. The first one is governance, searching for new and clear understood governance structure within place of our congregation. The second one is the renewing mission and vision of our church. Either reaffirm what we have today or redraft and vote for a congregational vote on that. And then the third development goal is our capital campaign and building plan. So as we work through those during this time of COVID, there were Several things that we worked on as a team. The team, our first goal in the first several months since February was to work on what we needed to do for renewing the mission and vision. So our team will propose in the July board meeting a 2021 Vision Mission Covenant redrafting special task force. The goals here for this special task force that we're asking the board to put together is to develop a redrafted vision, mission, and covenant that grows directly out of the congregation's core. We're not saying that they need to scrap the entire thing. There's a lot of great things in our mission and vision today. We want this task force to deeply involve the congregation in formulating and approving the draft. It's very, very important to us. We need them to research and work with other UU congregations to understand what's happened in their redrafting process or any changes that need to be made. So that's the big first thing. We will again present that in the July board meeting for approval. In June, in the month of June, the team also completed the required transitional minister annual assessment, which is a UUA requirement to have when you have a transitional minister and staff. The purpose of the assessment is really to establish a baseline of the congregation's work in the focus areas, so in our development goals. It also serves to identify any obstacles that we're having. Of course, COVID and the pandemic was an obstacle to meet in person. We think we'll see a lot more progress. I think Diane summed it up very well for us, that the team in general were in agreement that the first year's goal really of the transitional minister and her position in place was to survive the pandemic. I think she exceeded and succeeded upon that, as it's been stated in this meeting earlier today. Just the way she is able to bring us together and keep us together as a congregation as we met virtually was just phenomenal. So the monthly team meetings will continue to focus on the progress of the development goal. We will continue to check in as we are expecting the board to approve that vision, mission, covenant redraft for the special task force. So we'll support that team as needed. We are going to move forward in the next months to discuss governance. We've had several governance team task force that have done a lot of great research on other UU congregations and proposals in the years prior to this and with our transition over the last couple of years. So we're going to dig through that research, make some suggestions, and we'll be bringing that back to the congregation. Just one other note on the Vision, Mission, Covenant Redraft Special Task Force. Anything that team creates, we are putting a timeline that they would to bring for a vote to the congregation in our mid-year meeting January. So that task force will be assembled quickly. They're going to hit the books hard and get to work, start meeting with the congregation so that they can present something again for the mid-year meeting vote in January. That's all. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Thank you, Doug, so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica. And a reminder to the whole congregation that Reverend Diane is with us for 3 to 5 years. So we've got time to move through these transitions under her guidance. The next item on the agenda is the recognition of the 2021 GA delegates. Originally, when this meeting was scheduled earlier in the month, it was to introduce them, and because this is the last day of GA, this is instead to recognize them and thank them as being representing First GU at General Assembly this year. To thank them for their service and for the time they've spent this last week in meetings and conducting the business that allows Unitarian Universalism to flourish in these difficult times. So the names are posted there: Jeannie Hammond, Jessica Moore-Lucas, Jennifer Hackett, Roddy Biggs, Daryl Mayer, Rachel Rogers, Edie White, and Elizabeth Kashir. Thank you very much for representing First UU to the General Assembly. I'd like to take a moment here to acknowledge our fabulous Zoom meeting facilitators. This last year would not have been possible without them, as I mentioned earlier. And they've been fabulous. both the mid-year and the annual meeting appear to have gone off without a hitch, maybe a few pauses, which were my fault more than anyone else's. And so I'd like to thank them for their fabulous work. Scott Weaver, who you see, and then the ones that are sort of hidden that you don't see, Kendra Anderson and Maddie Lindsay. Bill Latimer has been helping today, and everyone, hand wave, click your fingers, whatever you want to do to thank them for the fine work they've done, keeping us up and running, not just today, but for the entire year. And now we're at the end of our meeting. And at chalice extinguishing. Closing words from Diane Daugert, Reverend Diane.
Oh, thank you, Doug. I cannot imagine making it through this year as intact and whole as the congregation has without your steadfast leadership. And I actually look forward to meeting you in person and seeing you in the church. So that will happen soon next year, I'm sure.
Yes.
I have closing words that were written by Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone, our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Let us go with those words resounding in our hearts and in our minds. Let us go in love and always in peace.
The words
Mike.
the words for the chalice extinguishing were written by Elizabeth Sell Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
What an amazing year. It just makes me realize that, it takes a community for a church to operate, and those of us, staff, board members, and leadership positions can't do what we do without the entire congregation pulling together. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for everything you've done this year to help keep this church up and running, and look forward to seeing you in the fall. Reminder that that there's no FUUN worship today. We are joining the worship at GA if you choose, and the information to do that is on your screen. I'd like to say goodbye to everyone and thank you for a wonderful year as president, and meeting is adjourned.
And I stopped sharing, so if people want to wave at each other, see each other for a minute, you're welcome to do that now.
Great.
I'm going to go to gallery view so I can just flash through and see everybody at least briefly.
Me too.
Yeah. Great job, Doug.
Thank you. Couldn't do it without you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Doug.